Welcome to episode 120 of the Balance Period podcast, the show where we share stories of self-observation and actualization with one intention in mind, is to empower you to being the best emotionally intelligent example you can be for our next generation. I am one of your hosts, Recovery Ray.
And the Bald Sage.
And for today, we have a very special guest on the show. He is an author, he's a speaker, he's a storyteller, and a coach. He is the CEO of his personal development company, Elevation is a Must, and he is also the host of the Dreamcatchers broadcast, Dreamcatchers Worldwide broadcast. I got to make sure I add that in there. It is Mr. David D1 Gibson. David, how are you doing today?
Awesome, fellas. Great day to you, man. It's a pleasure to be on.
For sure. It's a pleasure to have you here. So I want to give you the space now to share with everyone a little bit more about who you are and how you spend most of your time.
In a nutshell, man, really just an ordinary individual with an extraordinary vision. And, when you start living by purpose, eventually, you start doing amazing things. And, that's something that I've committed myself to. I have my own personal development platform, Elevation is a Must, where I encourage leaders to upgrade the way that they live this thing that we call life through their systems and models that they incorporate in their day-to-day behavior, which is their mindset, their beliefs, and ultimately the habits, which goes hand in hand with what you guys kind of dive into during this podcast. Speak at many conferences, host my own conferences, coaching, really just in a position to add value to others. That's what I'm very big on. Helping individuals understand their value, live their value, and share their value with the world.
Yeah, it is definitely well needed and well appreciated. I feel like anyone that is willing to make that commitment to work in that space is someone who is looking to make this world a better place. And the more people that we have that do that, the better that this world will become. So thank you for the work that you do, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the origin stories of Elevation is a Must. I know that for me and with Balance Period, something happened in my life that sparked me to say, hey, I'm going to make this commitment to be the best me. And then that transformed to me wanting to share that with other people. So talk a little bit about the origin stories of Elevation is a Must.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Ray, man, it's like purpose often is birthed through pain, right? Like we go through our setbacks, our struggles, and our difficulties. And life and God himself has a way of teaching us the strength and the power that's within. And I think that's many people's story, their backstory, so to speak, that has got them in position to do the things that they do now and contribute to humanity. And the same is true for me. I found myself, this was years ago, in a position where didn't necessarily know my worth, didn't know my value, and had recently graduated from college. Got my degree in business marketing and was really just unclear on what direction I was going to take my life. I was working a job in sales at the time. Being in that corporate space, you would think that was the arena that a business grad would want to be in. But I found myself unhappy, unfulfilled. I knew I wasn't utilizing my gifts and my talents nor tapping into my greater potential. But one thing that I was receiving every week was a paycheck, right? They call that the golden handcuffs. And you get into that cycle of growing comfortable. And in my particular situation, I was comfortably uncomfortable, if that makes sense, in an uncomfortable position, but was satisfied because, certain needs, so to speak, were being met. And essentially, I was going through an identity crisis at that particular time, low self-esteem, challenged in the area of confidence, was battling with depression, and was really just trying to find my purpose. I'm a man of faith, so I started connecting with God and really started identifying the truth of who I am, the power that's within. And what I started to do was just simply share different insights that I was coming across from my experiences with others. This is early in the game of social media. Well, not early in the game. This is like Facebook before Instagram even hit the scene. And, this is maybe around like 2012, 2011, so to speak. And would just share different posts and captions. And I started to get a response from individuals that would saying that, hey, David, I really enjoyed this message that you put out. This really helped me get through a difficult time. And all I was doing was just sharing things that I was personally experiencing. And from there, I started to get invited to speak. And if you knew me years ago, that's completely out of my character and personality. I'm like, yo, man, I'm not going to speak in front of organizations or event spaces where you have attendees and all eyes are on me. I'm having difficulties just speaking in front of one person. You know, you want me to go out there and encourage other people to live their dreams, and I find it difficult to encourage myself. But purpose has a way of finding you where you are, even when you think you're not ready, right? So I said yes to the opportunities, and from there, really just started to grow in the area of my confidence and self-esteem as it relates to standing on stage. And back to the job that I was working at, you know, it's amazing how life unfolds. Eventually got laid off from that job just arbitrarily out of nowhere. And at that point in time, I made up my mind that I was no longer going to do things that didn't express my heart. So from there, I had developed a passion for encouraging individuals and helping them live out their dreams. So I made up my mind I'm going to take it and run with it. And then fast forward to now to 2020, you know, it's a personal development platform, and I've been blessed to speak internationally, host my own events, and connect with individuals like you on a mission to make the world a better place.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. When you were talking about being at a space to where you identified that that was not your purpose, can you talk a little bit about the process that you went through? I know you mentioned that you started to take action, and that the result of that action, then you started to develop that self-belief. But can you talk a little bit about what that process looked like to transform from where you were to where you are now?
And I'm glad you chose the word process, Ray, because, you know, me describing it would make one think that it happened like that, you know, and it didn't take, you know, that type of unfolding. It took time of exploring different opportunities, discovering more about yourself, being real with yourself, identifying your insecurities, identifying limited beliefs, but most importantly, having the desire for more, right? That's where it begins. I'm a firm believer that the day that we stop striving for more, that's when we start accepting less. And that's where I found myself. I just knew within my heart, like, there's got to be more to life than just this, than waking up, you know, going to a job, clocking in, being unhappy, looking and searching for something of value and something that's going to bring me fulfillment. Like, that desire was in the inside of me. And that's where I guess everything started to unfold, because that desire put me on this search to find the truth, like my truth. You know what I mean? Everybody has their own specific truth as it relates to what they're supposed to do and what makes them feel and come alive. So it was definitely a process of just discovering that, and then really confronting the fears that stood in front of me and what I really and truly wanted to do. Even in the moments when I didn't realize that's what I wanted, right? Like, that's what fear often does. It will blind you of what you truly desire, and you'll never be able to tap into it until you confront that fear and say, you know what, you're no longer going to manipulate me or isolate me from my purpose or push me away from the passion that lives on the inside of me. I'm going to confront you, and what you realize is that fear moves out the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've experienced it too. It seems like it like dissolves. Like you're able to transcend that fear by just paying a little closer attention to it long enough to where you see that fear that was once that barricade doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And even to extend on that, Ray, fear is often a tool of growth because it forces you to level up. It forces you to prepare, right? It forces you to confront the unknown or something that seems uncertain, which essentially, after it's all said and done, helps us evolve into greater beings. And that's what it's really all about. You know, it's not about what we do. We focus on what we do. What's most important is who we become. And when we confront fear, we become stronger. We become more resilient. We become greater individuals that are more equipped to do more amazing things.
Yeah, agree.
I was going to say earlier, you had mentioned about as you went through your journey that you kind of share insights that you were receiving. Yeah. So has that changed with where you're at now? Do you still share insights that you receive with people when you're in your messages?
For sure, man. I mean, that's the foundation of what I do. At the end of the day, we're all figuring this thing out. You know what I mean? Nobody has life figured out. So it's a matter of us taking our experiences and then sharing them with others, whether it's in the space of personal development, professional development, small business owners, entrepreneurship, wellness and health, fitness, whatever the case may be. It's our personal responsibility to take what we've learned and to share it with others. That's how we build a better and a brighter world. Like, you know, to be able to help somebody avoid mistakes, overcome their obstacles, tap into their greater potential, excuse me. That's what life is about. That's what purpose is, right? Like, you take what you're gifted at and then you share that with others. So I wake up day in and day out, and that's what drives me. It's like, how can I help somebody? How can I encourage somebody? How can I give someone a tool that's going to help them solve a problem that they're facing right now? And essentially, you know, it's fulfilling.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the things that you mentioned was that you had this desire for more, that you knew that there was something greater for you, and that desire for more is what kind of keeps you motivated as you're traveling along your journey. So I know personally that desire for more, oftentimes I will put a lot of energy there and forget to appreciate the present moment. So along your journey, how have you been able to find balance between striving for more, but then also enjoying yourself each step along your journey?
I won't say I'm perfect at it, you know, because that's an area of growth that I can tap into. But I've learned to what you're talking about is balance, right? Like having that balance. Like I like the name of the podcast, you know, balance, where you're able to process, I've accomplished some things, I've overcome some things, but then I have this yearning desire for more. And that thing that we call appreciation is key, right? Because that's what gives us access to striving for more, by appreciating where you are now and understanding that you've overcome some challenges in your past, which you can use as a tool to help you strive for more and overcome some bigger and greater things that may come up in your future. But to answer your question directly, it's something I'm still working on. It's a process for me, but I see the importance in it, and I'm definitely putting energy and focusing it towards that.
Yeah, same. I mean, it's something that I address in my own experience every day. It's something that I have to bring my awareness back to because I've experienced the imbalance in that area of my life. So it's definitely important. I think it is. It's something where you kind of understand your limits as it pertains to striving for more, while also needing to pause and just appreciate the present moment along that journey. So it's definitely an ongoing thing for me as well.
Because I mean, we've been blessed with the gift of ambition, right? And on the flip side of the coin, it can be a quote unquote curse in some cases, because you're always looking for the next thing, right? And as we're looking for the next thing, what often happens is we fail to celebrate what we've already done. And there's so much power and so much prosperity that is birthed through celebrating your overcome your the word I'm looking for is your accomplishments, your achievements, your wins, the progress that you have made. But then there's that part of us that just says, I gotta get it, I gotta grind, I gotta go for more. And again, we gotta find that balance because it's very critical and important.
For sure. For sure. And so what I found is that what helps me in that space are the habits that I practice on a daily basis. So what I want to understand from your journey is, what were some of the habits that you practiced early on and even up until now that have helped you continue to develop into who you are today?
Oh man. Habits. First and foremost, I would say a big habit that I started to incorporate, and I talked about this earlier this morning on my broadcast, is really giving yourself permission to make a mistake. Like, we live in a society where perfectionism is real. And I made a vow with myself, D1, you ain't got to be perfect to be amazing. Just challenge yourself. As long as you challenge yourself, that's how you're going to grow. And as you challenge yourself, you're going to make mistakes. There's going to be shortcomings. There's going to be things that don't work out the way that you necessarily planned them to. But when you give yourself permission to make those mistakes, you grow and you develop. Other habits that I've incorporated, of course, lifestyle, health, definitely taking control of, what you intake, as far as food, as far as content, as far as what you see through the media, what you allow to influence and really shift your mindset or take residence within your consciousness. Fitness. I mean, that's how we connected. And
Yep.
When we were talking about this offline. Health is wealth. And when you take care of your body, it essentially helps you become more effective and live out the purpose that you've been created for, as well as growing. When we talk about growth, the name of my company is Elevation is a Must, and that essentially means that the ceiling that you bust through will eventually become the floor to your next level. So it's always about growing and developing, learning new things, developing new skills, and gaining deeper levels of competence in whatever area that you're looking to grow in, and then challenging yourself. That's something that I'm very big on. It's something that I've made a commitment to do, challenging myself to really find out how far I can take it. And we can talk day in and day out about habits, but I mean, as you both know, habits, they shape our lives. We determine our habits, then our habits are what really shapes the lives that we live. So it's very important that we're mindful of them, right? I wouldn't say that there's just one thing that everybody should do, because everybody has a different journey. Everybody has their own personal story. I would say that you just find what works best for you and what gives you greater results, what makes you feel fulfilled, and what ultimately improves the quality of your life. And if it's doing any of those things, stick with it, hone in on it, do more of it. But the key is to monitor those habits that you incorporate on a day-to-day basis and ask yourself, is this serving me, or is this hindering me from getting to where I want to be?
Yeah. And what you just mentioned, I actually was just about to ask you about that. You said monitoring them on a daily basis, right? Because in order to manage the habits you practice, it's important that you measure them to a certain degree to get that feedback on if they're actually contributing to you being the best you or not. And so how do you go about measuring the habits that you practice and their effectiveness in you fulfilling your purpose?
I'll say there's one habit that I've incorporated in my life that ultimately helps me measure that particular progress and how effective I'm doing this thing called life. And that's every night. What I do is I ask myself 3 questions. And some nights I may write them down, or other nights I'm just consciously aware of them and answering them in my head. But the first question that I ask myself is, how did I grow? Second question that I ask myself is, how was I recognized? The third question that I ask myself is, what contribution did I make? Now, let me break down the psychology behind those 3 questions, okay? When I ask myself, how did I grow? What that does is it puts me in a position, like, you guys know how the mind works. When you set the intention, then the behavior will then therefore follow that intention. As I ask myself that every single day, now my mind is put into a position where I must find some area of growth that I can experience in every particular day. And it helps me understand the difficulties that I may experience, or the losses, quote unquote, that I face, because we don't lose, we learn from those experiences. And with that mindset of looking for areas of growth, if I failed, if I got rejected, if I had a conflict, or something didn't work out the way that I had planned it to, my mind is now searching not for the negative aspects of that experience, but the positive aspects of the experience, because I'm looking for ways to grow. The second question, how was I recognized? That's a psychological need that every human being has, right? We want to be recognized. I want to be seen. And many times we fail to see how we're recognized on a day-to-day basis. You can be recognized simply by somebody holding a door for you, or, a small gesture of a smile. Making note of those things helps you understand that you are seen, you're human. Then number 3, what contribution did I make? That's what we're here for, to impact the lives of others. Did I make someone smile? Did I help someone think from a different perspective? Did I shift the emotion that someone was experiencing on that particular day and went from anger to positive? You know what I mean? Asking these questions, what they all are attached to are ultimately self-esteem, growth, recognition, contribution. And if we do these on a day-to-day basis and we're marking these things off, it boosts our self-esteem. And in life, we only rise to the level of success that our self-esteem can absorb. So I know I'm kind of going on like a journey of answering that question, but essentially asking those 3 questions helps me stay on track with specific habits that help me grow and make a contribution and understand that I am recognized, right? And essentially that helps improve the quality of my life. When I started doing that a few years back, I didn't really comprehend like how so much power or something so profound can be birthed through simplicity, right? Just asking a simple question as, how did I grow? How was I recognized? And what contribution did I make?
Wow. Yeah, that was profound. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah.
going in depth and for sharing more on that, because that is definitely something that I am going to try out. I like to hear stuff like that because I'm like, it's something that I can add to my routine and see, as you mentioned before, if it does increase the quality of my life. Because if it does, it'll be something that I can keep in that space of my, what we like to call our evening routine, as a part of our sustainable self-care system. So as the way that we prioritize our time to pour into ourselves so we can be the best us for everyone else and everything else that we choose to spend our time with. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
For sure.
Yeah. So in finishing out here, I know I have a question. Nick, do you have any more questions before I ask him the last one?
No, I do not. Any question that I was thinking of, he kind of answered it when he went into in depth about the 3 questions that he asked himself. As we said before, it's very powerful.
Yeah. So this is a question that is honestly just a personal interest of mine. What are the 3 words that you would use to describe the relationship you have with yourself?
Honest, encouraging, and coach.
I like that. I like the coach, because I know I've talked about it on this platform quite a bit, but I realized that for me early on in my journey, my inner voice was more of an inner critic than an inner coach.
Yeah.
And through transforming that voice into more of an inner coach, I was able to empower myself so that I could grow in spite of the adversity that I experienced in life. So can you talk a little bit more about how that has influenced your journey?
Man, like I talked about earlier, when I was going through like that identity crisis, really just unclear of my purpose, and really was just damaging the area of my self-esteem. You talk about an inner critic, man. Like, literally just treat myself like a punching bag, right? Like, you make a mistake and you're a failure, or the opportunity didn't work out. You're worthless. You don't carry any value. And I started to realize, brothers, that how important it is to communicate with yourself in a way that is encouraging, inspiring, but most importantly, in a graceful manner, in a manner that comes from a position of love, right? Like, you can critique yourself from a place of love, not beating yourself down, but giving yourself the understanding that, you can do better, you can strive for more, but you're not a failure. And my life, really, to be honest with you, it didn't change until I first changed the way I started talking to myself. I started communicating to myself, right? Because one thing that's for sure is we're all going to make mistakes, but it's a matter of how you communicate to yourself. That's what's going to determine if you're going to grow from those mistakes. We're all going to be, quote unquote, maybe stuck in life, right? In some cases where you don't know what your next move is going to be. There's a lot of uncertainties that are in front of you, and you don't know what decisions to make. Many people stay there because of the voice that's in their head. But when you start treating yourself like a coach, right? Like, you're pulling out the clipboard and you got the X and O's and you're saying, hey, this is the shot that you miss. This is the shot that you do hit. Let's focus on this. I'm encouraging you to do what's working, not to be stuck on what's not working. And when you come from a place of love like that, that helps you win and put points on the board of your life and move your life forward. So I say all that to say, man, like, I was in a spot, man, where, like, literally, you talk about critic, that was the worst enemy, and, beating yourself down, and depression creeps in, anxiety can creep in, feelings of worthlessness can creep in, suicidal thoughts can creep in, all because you start critiquing yourself in a negative fashion. And then what happens is the voice begins to amplify. And when that voice is amplified within you, it seems as if that's your truth. And you got to change the story in your head. And when I did that, that's when the results begin to improve. You know what I mean? Like, things didn't necessarily unfold the way that I had envisioned them. But now that I'm communicating to myself in a positive way, like you said, I'm appreciating who I am. I'm loving where I've come from. I'm giving myself grace, and I'm still moving forward. And that really started happening when I shifted the conversation that was happening within my own mind.
For sure. Wow. Well, thank you, man. Thank you, David, for the time that you share with us today, for the insights, all of the gems that are sprinkled throughout this episode. Yeah. Thank you so much. I want to give you the space now to share one thing that you would like to leave everyone with. And then after that, go ahead and let everyone know how they can get in contact with you and stay in touch with what you're working on.
One thing I would like to leave all the listeners with is a quote that I have on multiple social media platforms, like in my bio. And the quote says this: "The goal has never been to become known. The goal has always been to become someone worth knowing." And what that does is, like, we live in a generation now where everybody wants the followers, everybody wants the views. That shouldn't be our focus. Your focus should always be on creating value, being a person of value, making sure that you are worth knowing. So I encourage each and every single listener, ask yourself that question: what makes me worth knowing? Because there is a reason. There's a significance about you that makes you worth knowing. Hone in on that. Own that. Honor that. And when you do that, life begins to open up with greater opportunities and new possibilities, simply because your focus is not on the attention, but your focus is now on value. And man, like you mentioned, to connect at D1 Gibson on all platforms, youtube.com/David Gibson for our Dreamcatchers Worldwide broadcast. And then for free resources, just simply head up my website, elevationIsAmust.com.
Perfect. And for everyone listening, we will put that information in the show notes, so feel free to take a look there to get connected with David and all that he's working on. Thank you once again, David, for your time today. We look forward to potentially collaborating and partnering with you moving forward, because it sounds like we're working in a similar space. So I think collaborations are definitely powerful for us to continue to expand what we know, and what we know can influence the quality of lives for the people that hear it and experience it. So For sure. All right. Well, thank you all once again for tuning in. Nick, is there anything that you want to leave the people with?
As always, you are already whole, and keep enjoying your amazing journey.
Perfect. And for me, last word is, we are unable to fill anyone else's cup if our cup is empty. So be sure to prioritize time for self-care, continue to learn, continue to grow, and be the best emotionally intelligent example you can be. Thank you all once again. We look forward to bringing you another episode of the Balance Period podcast next week. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
Later.